This place is known as the Valley of the Chinese Kings. A massive stone stele stands towering under the open sky. This is an exquisitely rare sculpture, dedicated to the martial Emperor of Heaven. She was the only woman in the 1,000-year history of the North to ever ascend the throne. She overcame all barriers to ascend the throne, a position traditionally reserved for men. However, the image of that queen remains highly controversial, seen as cruel, ambitious, and a disruptor of traditional order. Yet, what is the answer that posterity has forgotten? Was Wu Zetian truly a cruel tyrant, or simply a brilliant leader misunderstood by history? Wu Zetian, also known as Wu Mingyang, Wu Zhao, or Empress Wu, was a famous historical figure in China. Her real name was not recorded in historical texts, or in other words, it remains unidentified to this day. In 637, Emperor Taizong of Tang heard rumors of the famously incomparably beautiful Wu clan. Wu Zetian is also known by other names such as Wu Mingyang, Wu Zhao, or Empress Wu. Wu Zetian, also known by other names such as Wu Mingyang, Wu Zhao, or Empress Wu. It is said that Lady Vo possessed unparalleled beauty, and thus was chosen to enter the imperial palace, where she was granted the title of Tainan, the fifth rank among the 9 ranks of the imperial harem. However, Vo Tak theme was not widely favored. Even when used by the royal court, the quantity remained insignificant. After Emperor Taizong passed away, she became a consort of Emperor Gaozong of Tang, the son of the late emperor. In 655, Lady Wu was officially proclaimed empress. However, as Emperor Gaozong's health continued to decline, real power gradually fell into the hands of the woman who ruled the country at that time. On September 9, 690, at the age of 67, Empress Wu ascended the throne after her husband's death. Ascending the throne at Tak Thien Gate, she officially changed the dynasty's name from Tang to Zhou. Yet, ancient Chinese historical records wrote about her in a bitter and utterly unforgiving tone. They described Wu Zetian as a cruel, ruthless, immoral, and licentious ruler, plunging the country into chaos. The most striking example is the tale of killing one's own flesh and blood to seize power, ruthlessly climbing to the pinnacle of authority. At that time, the young princess Din had just been born when she suddenly passed away. Seizing the opportunity, Wu Zetian pinned all the blame on Empress Wang while persuading the emperor, saying the death of their daughter was the result of blind jealousy. Queen Wang and consort Xiao, driven into a corner, resorted to dark magic to fight back. However, their plan was exposed before they could carry it out. The emperor flew into a rage and immediately approved the sentence to exile them to the cold palace. Legend has it that after officially ascending to the throne as empress, Wu Zetian ordered the limbs of 2 women to be severed. Then drop it into a vat of water and leave it until it breathes its last. The girl who also witnessed that horrific scene was captured, ensuring the secret would be buried forever in the depths of the Forbidden Palace. Later, the relatives forced Crown Prince Li Trung to die in order to install their own bloodline, Li Hoang, on the throne. However, for expressing discontent toward her mother's absolute authority, this person was also poisoned during a visit to the palace in Hebei. Crown Prince Li Xian was later also forced to commit suicide for showing disrespect toward the Empress Dowager. Wu Zetian repeatedly elevated and then deposed her own sons. So it turns out they were just temporary pawns on the chessboard of power. Though seated upon the throne, she still clearly displayed her inherently gentle and gracious nature. According to folk legends, Wu Zetian had many lovers. Some notable names include the brothers Trong Suong Tong and Trong Diatrai, Tram Tai Wai, and Feng Tiu Bao. The authenticity of these records remains an endlessly debated topic among historians. Part of the reason stems from the fact that the source materials were compiled by authors who are teachers. These people always regarded Wu Zetian as a usurper who violated the moral norms of the monarchical system. Moreover, the queen herself, with her keen political acumen, had even taken actions to interfere with the compilation of historical records. This makes fact-checking more difficult. Records about Wu Zetian have been widely circulated and have endured over time, remaining preserved to this day. The new archaeological discovery has revealed a completely different portrait, complex, sophisticated, and far more powerful than the traditional depiction. During the reign of Wu Zetian, the role of women in politics reached an unprecedented level in the history of feudal China, especially when compared to previous dynasties. In the ancient capital of Chang. Here, an intact royal tomb buried underground for over 1,200 years has been discovered. The buried individual is Li Tui, who passed away in 736 AD, a descendant of Emperor Cao Tu. The nobleman's body remains perfectly preserved, with the intricate makeup and jewelry still intact upon his hair. Notably, the hairstyle remains intricately coiled, adorned with hundreds of shimmering gold pieces, jade, and precious gemstones. This is a significant discovery, enabling experts to successfully restore a treasure that was believed to exist only in ancient records. Before the phoenix crown, the supreme symbol of power and pinnacle of artistry, previously known only through records from the Tang Dynasty. This has appeared before humanity's eyes. This study was conducted by a team of German and Chinese experts, spanning 6 years of diligent work with thousands of hours of rigorous effort. The crown restoration process demands extreme precision, requiring the careful setting of each tiny gemstone under microscopic manipulation, continuously for 18 months. Each piece is not just a part of the era's picture, but also carries its own message, transcending the ordinary boundaries of art. When using TX fluorescence techniques to analyze material origins, scientists made an utterly surprising discovery. This hat is not only an embodiment of luxury, but also an intricate map reflecting the trade network of that era. The veil originated in Central Asia and was later introduced and widely spread across the Indian subcontinent. Amber originates from West Asia, while ivory must cross the seas from distant lands where elephants roam. From a small piece of jewelry in the imperial court, jade rose to become a symbol affirming the grandeur of the flourishing Chinese Empire during the Qing dynasty. With an influence spanning from the Far East to the western reaches of the Eurasian continent. The most surprising thing is that an item originally meant for queens or princesses ended up belonging to a merchant's daughter, proving luxury is no longer an exclusive privilege, but also spread to the upper-class nobility. Besides the hat, Li Tui was also holding an incredibly impressive jade plaque in her hand. This passage clearly reflects Beijing's strategy to turn China into a hub for continental-scale production and trade of goods. This discovery isn't just for the classroom packed with tough questions during study time, while also helping to clarify the social structure, power dynamics, and aesthetic ideals of a period once overlooked by history. It is evident that the reality completely contradicts the previous notion that King Le Tonton's reign was a period of chaos. Some modern scholars argue that the reign of these three kings reached its peak in terms of economy, culture, and diplomacy. The queen placed special emphasis on agriculture. She ordered the compilation of farming manuals, built irrigation systems, reduced taxes, and implemented numerous land management reforms. For example, in 695, the court issued a decree exempting nationwide taxes for 1 year, thereby improving people's livelihoods and bringing prosperity and stability across the country. According to historians, she later lived a lavish life, squandering wealth on building temples and catering to her personal desires. However, for the majority of the people, Batak Thien was still regarded as a deeply beloved ruler. The ancient school located in the rocky border region of Sichuan has records stating that whenever droughts or floods occurred, the villagers of Andeo worship Princess Nguyen at her temple, which bears the title of Thien Hao. To this day, the celestial horse hoof is still revered in the annual agricultural festivals. One of the significant archaeological discoveries reflecting the flourishing period of international education during this dynasty is the mural depicting the royal court receiving foreign envoys. This artifact was discovered in the tomb of Crown Prince Li Xian, also known as Zhongwei Crown Prince, in Xi'an, China, depicting a solemn diplomatic scene. Because the three court officials are discussing, while the three foreign envoys are awaiting the outcome. These days are believed to have originated in Europe, Korea, and some ethnic minorities in Northeast Asia. They showed their reverence by bowing and clasping their hands in front of their chests, demonstrating the diplomatic protocol and international relations of Korea. This mural is not only a treasured artistic masterpiece but also regarded as an incredibly authentic and vivid historical document. This demonstrates the cultural diversity and vast influence of China during the reign of Wu Zetian. This passage affirms that Chang'an was not merely a center of political power, but also a crossroads of civilizations from across the 5 continents. Not only did Wu Zetian expand her influence through diplomatic strategies, but she also actively promoted the exchange between Western and South Asian ideologies and Chinese culture. According to the latest studies, approximately 25,000 foreigners settled in Chang'an during this period. Most of them were merchants, and the most luxurious commodity was, of course, Chinese silk. Since the 4th millennium BCE, this has been one of the world's most luxurious commodities. By the time of Empress Wu, the demand for silk surged as it was considered equal in value to gold. The Silk Road stretched endlessly through Chang'an, then spread across the east and the west, connecting China with many other civilizations. However, by the mid-7th century, rampant piracy had completely disrupted this trade activity. New findings have revealed that one of Wu Zetian's key strategies was establishing military outposts deep in Central Asia to safeguard this vital trade route. This strong development has brought improvements and conveniences to the central government. To demonstrate that prosperity, Wu Zetian expanded the imperial palace on a scale unprecedented in history. The most prominent was the construction of the Daming Palace, the most colossal architectural complex of its time, covering an area twice that of the ancient city of Pompeii. It is 5 times larger than the Forbidden City and 22 times bigger than the Acropolis of Athens. This building consists of 3 floors, with the ground floor featuring a crown-shaped architecture symbolizing the 4 seasons. It is often used as the venue for announcing policies and legal documents. The middle tier has a 12-sided shape, symbolizing the 12 deities of time in ancient Chinese timekeeping, and also serves as a place for ancestral worship. The top floor is circular, supported by 9 dragons, where Wu Zetian could stand and gaze at the vast expanse of her territory. An ancient wooden column with a circumference of 15 meters stands vertically, running from the base to the top, serving as the backbone of the entire beam and arch support system. Within the royal palace grounds, there are also a half-moon courtyard, an archery practice field, a horse racing track, and a training area for theater troops. Behind it, there are 3 or 4 other shrines, worn and isolated, serving the main axis and the private living quarters of the monarch. Foreign delegations stepping foot here cannot help but be astonished, as envoys describe the sensation of entering a mystical world, a convergence of political power and unparalleled opulence. The city was originally based on the symmetrical standards of imperial design, yet the Daming Palace was constructed entirely independent of the old city. The act of dismantling this traditional space is not merely a technical issue, but also carries profound political significance. After 12 years of living in a lowly status in the imperial harem, Wu Zetian decided to change her fate by crafting a new image for herself. The remarkable advancement in architecture is just one small piece of evidence showing how China has risen to become a global power. No longer a closed-off land, since the era of Wu Zetian, China had expanded extensive exchanges with Japan, Korea, Persia, and the countries of the Mediterranean region. Additionally, to strengthen their position, the locals leveraged the spreading influence of Buddhism to build strong relationships with the people. A series of iconic structures have been constructed, and the Grand Music Tower stands as a prime example of that policy. Construction began in 5600 BCE with the purpose of preserving sacred texts and serving as a meditation site. This place is a treasure trove housing many sacred manuscripts brought from India. Originally, the Great Wild Goose Pagoda was built with rammed earth and had 5 stories. In 704, during the reign of Empress Wu Zetian, it was renovated with bricks and expanded to 7 stories to enhance its resistance to natural disasters and ensure the structure's long-term durability. Dai Niok. The construction of this tower reflects the ambition to merge political power with religious faith. At that time, most residents of Chang'an were Buddhists, making it easy for them to recognize who was protecting their beliefs and thus willing to trust and follow. And, in Henan, over 400 kilometers away, the temple system played a pivotal role in expanding Wu Zetian. This place has long been regarded as a Buddhist sacred site, attracting countless pilgrims. The relationship between secular power and religious devotion is vividly reflected in the series of sculptures carved into the mountain cliffs. The nobility of that era spent vast fortunes to hire skilled sculptors, creating over 1,400 carved walls and more than 100,000 Buddha statues. Among these, the most prominent is a towering 17-meter-high statue, named the Great Tathagata Buddha. One theory suggests that the statue's face was crafted in the likeness of Wu Zetian to affirm her eternal status. Associating personal images with Buddha statues is not just a private act, but also a strategy to assert one's reputation in the context of a thriving religious landscape. It is evident that the construction of the Longmen Grottos and the giant Wild Goose Pagoda serves as proof that this leader deeply understood how to harness religious faith to maintain social stability and strengthen the empire's standing. Despite her immense achievements, Wu Zetian at that time still had to rely on the conservative nobility, those who inherently looked down upon women's power. Therefore, in search of peace, she decided to break these long-standing traditional rules. The criteria for selecting officials have shifted, no longer prioritizing personal morality as before but instead emphasizing educational qualifications and critical thinking abilities. I remember how she opened the doors of the court, actively seeking out learned, reputable, and talented individuals from all corners, rather than selecting only from a handful of noble families. Thanks to that action, Wu Zetian's reign seemed to avert potential uprisings that could have immediately overthrown the throne. She also personally organized examinations to select scholars, believing this method would ensure the quality of talent for the country's governance. Although the imperial examination system existed before the Tang dynasty, it was the reforms during this period that laid a solid foundation for subsequent dynasties. Wu Zetian also encouraged women to engage in commercial activities and, for the first time, legally permitted them to divorce and remarry. Not stopping there, she also appointed a remarkably talented female general to the position of prime minister, Huang Quanwaner. According to Chinese historical records, this individual came from a prestigious family. Because her grandfather committed a crime against Wu Zetian and was executed, Shang Quanwaner and her birth mother were forced to enter the palace as maidservants. Because she was more intelligent than others, skilled in calligraphy and poetry, and possessed a beautiful appearance, she was trained by the country's emperors from a young age by having her sit beside them during court sessions to record all proceedings. As power grew stronger, Qian Nhi was appointed as the leader of the trusted officials. She participated in drafting the emperor's edicts and was directly involved in crucial decisions regarding military and domestic governance. Some notable activities include assisting Wu Zetian, organizing the Grand Fengshan ceremony at Mount Tai, the foremost of the 5 sacred mountains, and making significant contributions to the campaigns to pacify the Khitan and conquer the Western Turks. The murals discovered in the tombs of Princess Vin Tai, the burial chamber, and Tan Tan all reveal that the nobility under this dynasty enjoyed a rich lifestyle and spacious living quarters. They strolled outdoors, singing and dancing on the grassy fields, hunting, horseback riding, playing ball games, even flying kites, exchanging official hats, or wearing loose ancient robes. Some girls disguised themselves as men and went to the front lines with their relatives, drinking wine and reciting poetry. These actions transgress moral boundaries and are unworthy of the nobility during the Song, Ming, and even the later Qing dynasties. Not only that, Wu Zetian also enacted numerous policies to promote literature and art. Madam, she was educated in literature, poetry, and music. Therefore, after ascending the throne, the queen established the Northern Gate Scholars Group to gather talented intellectuals dedicated to composing and serving the royal court's literary arts. Many outstanding poets like Li Bai and Du Fu emerged shortly after Bai Juyi's death. Even many courtesans of the Tang dynasty were renowned both as celebrated singers and distinguished poets. As a result, public culture is becoming increasingly rich, diverse, and brimming with creativity. However, in the late years of the La dynasty, she was educated in literature, poetry, and music. Thus, she became a subject of the Wu Zhou dynasty, while the wave of opposition from the nobility and Confucian scholars grew increasingly fierce. At that time, Wu Zetian was already in the twilight of her life, becoming the focal point of countless conspiracies to seize the throne. In 705, she voluntarily abdicated at the age of 80. 15 years later, she was overthrown by the Wu Zhou dynasty. Wu Zetian passed away at the age of 82, shortly after abdicating and yielding the throne to her son. At that time, the autopsy report recorded her death in an extremely perfunctory manner. Due to old age and declining health, the king had no choice but to abdicate the throne in favor of the crown prince. Just one more year until I get my degree. Even in the documents submitted to the imperial court, there is no mention of any edicts, oral commands, or handwritten notes by Wu Zetian during the final years of her life. Her passing marks the end of a tumultuous and distinct chapter in history. Both brilliantly splendid and intricately unpredictable. Before the tomb of Wu Zetian, the blank stone stele stands tall, a silent challenge to eternity. Perhaps, those women wished for future generations to personally carve the portrait of a person who transcends all the boundaries of history. But ironically, that very resilience became the tool her former enemies used to distort her story for centuries. The time will come when the truth is gradually revealed. If we had to carve words onto that nameless stone stele, what would future generations inscribe? Could this be a tribute to the only woman brave enough to stand against all stereotypes? Seizing the top position in the whirlwind of power, a realm traditionally reserved for men? Is it because the emperor is cruel, because of personal ambition that stops at nothing?